Howdy. Welcome back to the RedAss Podcast. First one of November. Good times. This is Rob White, fighting Texas A class of 2014.
And this is Roy May, fighting Texas A class 2015. And we have maintained COVID protocols for attendance, in case anybody was curious if we have too many people here. What a hot button issue for the Hogs.
You know, it's so funny to me. It's like...
Sorry, I couldn't help but get right into it. It's been so ridiculous.
It has been absolutely ridiculous. Sure, we can jump right on top of that. It's just, for those of you who've been keeping track now, in the last two victories at Kyle Field, both of which were good wins for this A&M team, Fortress Hate Barn has been holding firm so far here in 2020. The two gripes that have come out, both same gripe, from both head coaches, Dan Mullen and Sam Pittman.
Not direct.
And not direct, but gripes.
Lots of shade. Shady gripes.
Yeah, shady gripes have been in terms of our attendance at Kyle Field, which has just been kind of the funniest gripe I could possibly think of. Because, you know, at this stage of the year...
They said just enough to get their fan bases fired up.
Right.
You know, without actually very specifically saying, I think they're over capacity. Which... And this goes directly into really like your lifeblood, like your life maroon blood.
Mm-hmm.
If you think we need 100,000 people to be loud, go to Olsen, man. Go to a baseball game at Olsen on a Tuesday night where nobody even cares about the opponent, and you'll realize that Aggies are loud. So I'm super sorry that you're super butthurt about all of the attendance you perceive to be there.
Right.
But in Arkansas, it's gotten even worse about it. And I can understand Arkansas even being saltier.
Sure.
Just because, man, that's, in case you guys ran out of fingers or teeth, because all things that go in Arkansas, that's 9. That's 9 straight. And we'll get into the fact that this was a lot more convincing than you covering the spread.
9 more years, ladies and gentlemen. Will it into existence? We need this. But I will touch on just fun little facts. So coming into the game, about attendance numbers, the attendance leaders across all conferences at this point. Granted, you know, Big Ten and some other people aren't doing full capacity or whatever.
Yeah, Big Ten is still family, kind of close friends.
Mm. So right now, your attendance leaders, I'll go ahead and go low to high. Number 5, Georgia, they're averaging 20,524 people, 22% capacity.
Yeah.
LSU's averaging 21,490, 21% capacity.
They'd be at that 25% capacity if they didn't suck.
You're not wrong, man. And then you have Tennessee, who's got 22,357. That's 22% of their capacity. Oklahoma's at 22,700. That's at 27% capacity there. And then top attendance across everybody's Texas A&M at 24,391. We're at 24% capacity averaged, which, you know, I think we had a slightly lower crowd for that Vanderbilt game, but every other game has been A&M cruising.
Well, two things about those, and I saw those numbers. The two things about those numbers that surprised me, and then a statement on the backside. One, that Oklahoma has that big of a stadium.
No, their stadium's pretty good size.
I didn't realize. I didn't realize it was that big in Norman. I don't really pay attention to Oklahoma football that much.
I think they're anywhere from like 88 to 90.
So and then 2, I was surprised that Oklahoma was hitting 27%. Mm-hmm. But again, the SEC is at 25%. The Big 12 might be doing by state, so it might be different. And then the statement on the back of those two is, if you want more people, maybe you should have had a bigger capacity. Right. Maybe if you, you got to realize we built a cathedral, man.
Yeah, we did. And, you know, talk about Kyle Field. And everybody loves to post the pictures about the core. Everybody loves to post the pictures about the student section. But in reality, if you look at pictures around the stadium, it's not reflective of what the capacity is going on there.
Well, it reminds me of a Midnight Yell. You look up, and it just seems absolutely packed all the way to the rafters. And realistically, you know, third deck probably wasn't full. It was only like half full. Second deck may only have been like 3/4 of a deck full.
Right.
So when you're down there that low, and when A&M, and I'm not trying to be an apologist, like I don't care what Arkansas fans or boo-boo lift about it. I really don't care.
Right.
And I really don't care that Dan Mullen, the guy that showed up to his press conference in a Darth Vader mask after he went after Mizzou players and has been fined and sanctioned.
Right.
I really don't care what he has to say. But Arkansas fans are just salty. Like, of all the flavors, you chose salty, and I'm really sorry that you guys came in here on a high, coming off of, again, 11 turnovers, actual turnovers, not talking about red zone failures, because y'all didn't force some of that. Just crappy play calling. So, look, Arkansas, I think is still going to get there. I think Arkansas will rise above the Mississippis.
Right.
And that's where you'll stay.
Right.
And you just enjoy that. Just, you know what? I'm gonna tell Arkansas fans just right now. Just enjoy that. Just that's your place in life.
Yeah. And we will definitely get more into that here in a little bit.
I'm going to run through the top 25 scores.
I do want to do that.
No, I'm going to run through them. So, daylight savings time screws everything up, right?
Something like that.
All right, so I'm going to screw up how we do this. I'm going to run through the top 25 because I think a lot of these aren't worth talking about.
All right, sure. Why not? Let's get into it.
All right. So, and I'll go kind of just in the order that I pulled this side up on. So, UGA beating Kentucky 14-3 was surprising. They didn't win by more, but I think, it's UGA. I think Kentucky is a little bit better than we give them credit for. Michigan State beating Michigan. It's a rivalry game. We didn't know how good Michigan State was.
But this is also Michigan State's team that lost to Rutgers.
Yeah, but this is a Michigan that, barely beat what might be or turns out to be maybe an overrated Minnesota. Again, they're coming late to the game where their rankings are kind of skewed. So a lot of the ranks are they're just guessing on these Big Ten teams. Iowa State blowing out Kansas isn't surprising. Cincy is what it is. Maybe Memphis isn't as good anymore. The Big 12 is garbage. Nobody cares about Coastal Carolina. Clemson got stuck. And this isn't a 2-week trend because of the week before with Syracuse. I'm a firm believer, look through the years. Syracuse and Clemson is always a tough game. I don't know why, but it always is. And then this week, Clemson doesn't have Sunshine. And Sunshine is a Heisman candidate kind of player. Notre Dame doesn't matter because they have to play Clemson. Indiana beating Rutgers is weird, but I will never be on an Indiana football hype train ever.
No.
The Sips is hilarious.
Well, I think what just made that game just that much of an extra little cherry on top of the weekend is not only does it eliminate the Big 12 from any kind of playoff contention.
But Herman's still gone.
But Herman, you say he's gone, but at the same time, this does nothing but help his case to stick around, and that's what we want.
If the dude runs the table, he'll be in the Big 12 championship game, which is such a weird thing to say. But, the Big 12 is so fractured and so crappy that he could end up in the Big 12 championship game. Bama did to the Bulldogs what we thought they would.
Absolutely incredible.
Navy is a terrible football team and put up 37 on SMU, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah.
Penn State gave Ohio State a little bit more than I thought they would give them, to be honest, but still covered the spread. The Florida game, the Oklahoma game, a lot of these aren't close. UVA and UNC, everything comes back down to earth for UNC. And I thought that was... Yeah, we talked about that. The ACC is weird. It's
is.
There's Clemson at the top, and then who's next? And maybe it's Miami at this point. I don't know. I still don't believe in BYU, nor do I care about it because BYU doesn't play anybody. Like, beating Western Kentucky by 31 at home is basically the ultimate of non-conference games.
That shouldn't count. But, yeah.
But So we go through all this. The big thing is...
about the only other surprise I did have was West Virginia just pouring it on Kansas State.
But I think the Big 12 is trash.
Right.
Like, the fact that Kansas State is ranked 16th given their opening week loss is... So if the pollsters took my, kind of approach from last week and threw out the first game, then I could see where you would think Kansas State would be ranked. 16th is a...
It was high.
Bit high.
It was high.
But it goes to show you, the Big 12 is there even a class of the Big 12 right now?
No, it's just kind of a whole muddled mess.
So let's go through the conferences.
All right,
ACC, obviously, Clemson.
Sure.
Even without Trevor Lawrence,
it's
still
Clemson.
Managed to find... did you see the kid playing for Clemson, the backup quarterback?
He did well
Oof.
in the second half there.
Speaking of quarterbacks that I really hadn't watched, that quarterback from LSU, You know what he reminds me of?
Who?
Jamarcus Russell.
I can see that.
Same size. He can throw off his back foot 70 yards and really doesn't make great decisions and will eventually be a flop.
Right. It's a fair way to put it. I think, golly, just there was so many wild games this weekend,
but class of the leagues. So Big Ten, I think it's obvious. It's got to be Ohio State.
It's going to be Ohio State. There's nobody else.
I don't think anybody's close. You thought maybe Michigan might be close given Minnesota's rank when they beat them, but that's it. They're done.
You gotta wonder. You gotta wonder how much every week Georgia's sitting back, just shaking their head. The fact that Fields is just out here balling every week. He's gonna ball every week.
Given how Bennett plays, that's a brutal transfer.
It is absolutely brutal.
But even then, I mean, think about it, dude. They have Bennett and they're playing well.
Sure.
Right. Imagine, and obviously, if I was an Nuggets fan, I'd be like, dude, if we just had Fields. Because,
they're talking about that on their podcast.
Maybe that Bama game is a point or two. Maybe they beat Bama. Who knows?
Who knows?
It's college football, and quarterbacks are king.
That's right.
Even more so than the NFL.
No doubt. You look at some, I kind of want to touch on a couple extra games that were not ranked SEC games. So Auburn absolutely taken it to LSU. I think we just kind of said that was kind of a freaking, like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation.
I just don't think it has anything to do with how good Auburn is.
I don't
that's
think it
the
is
thing. I'll pound on this narrative until I am proven otherwise. I don't think Bo Nix is the answer. I think Bo Nix is the name. I think LSU is terrible. And on top of that, no matter how terrible they may be offensively, dude, they have Bo Pelini. So they're really bad now.
Oh, yeah, defensively they're rough.
Imagine you having like an average, like even just average offense, and you hire Bo Pelini as your defensive coordinator.
Bo Pelini's getting $44,000 a week to coach that defense right now. Think about that, guys. How many of y'all fresh out are looking at $40,000 a year? A year. This dude is getting... I mean, God, I could...
If you screw up, you're gone.
But the thing is, I would happily go in and take a contract like that, screw up a program, and go home and take all my millions away.
Dude, for $44,000 a week, I will wear purple and gold. Yeah. I will run kind of my old Tecmo Bowl NCAA 14 defenses that I used to throw at. I'll tell you one thing. There'll be a lot of blitzing.
There would be.
And praying to God my secondary's good. So it's just... honestly, you look at these Bo Pelini defenses, and you sit there and for the us who played the NCAA game growing up, was that how he learned?
Right.
I mean, what is he doing? But again, we say it every week. Couldn't happen to a better group of people.
No.
Not upset that LSU is getting their doors blown off.
Well,
so you got to love that next to last week game. The next to the last week of the season, we get to play the Bayou Bengals here in Aggieland. Right. And if you don't think there's a revenge factor in these players after 50-7,
there absolutely should be.
If we bury them 70-7, I will not 77-0 be nice. I've seen that score in the other.
Oh my God, I would, man, that would be just epic.
But you look at the slate of games, and we'll kind of go through this obviously a little bit more in depth. South Carolina, Tennessee, 2 away games, back to back, which is, it doesn't matter how good you are, that does take a toll. But like LSU, and Auburn, and Ole Miss, okay,
right? It's like you feel like if you were to give us a stretch, that's not the worst stretch to be given. And so
if you had to have back to back away games, South Carolina, Tennessee. I mean, maybe you trade Tennessee for LSU, but
right. I mean, we'll certainly take it at this point. I think looking at just every other game in the SEC that we've touched on at this point, other than Auburn, other than Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, which kind of went as we expected.
Yeah. Well, it's Vandy and Mississippi State this week, isn't it?
Oh, God, yeah. I'll check it out here in a bit.
I feel like it's Vandy, Mississippi State, which.
If there was a butt bowl,
man, in the SEC, go Vandy. Go Vandy. So rehashing the old scores, I'm good with it. A lot of that stuff doesn't matter because we're already a couple days removed, and I'd rather just talk about our game.
Right, we can certainly get into our game. That's something we can do right now.
Cincy, I don't care if Cincy beat anybody. I really don't. And I understand that they're beating teams that. They're beating the Memphises and the SMUs of the world by 30 points. Okay, yeah, but they're beating the Memphises and the SMUs by 30 points. And I saw something online that was like, we should schedule Cincinnati the week of the SEC championship game. First of all, dumbest idea ever.
Okay, I would love to hear your point.
Yeah, no.
Please
Because
enlighten me.
Why
Because,
it's the
because if
dumbest
they're
idea
ranked
ever?
ahead of us, enlighten me why that wouldn't be a good game to play.
Why would you randomly schedule at this point? Because you really have to start scheduling now.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if either of us trip on ourselves and we're just playing a useless game, which destroys our bowl rankings? And if we beat Cincinnati, shouldn't every person that has a normal head on their shoulder be like, yeah, an SEC team is better than Cincinnati? So it really doesn't help us that much unless you really care about very specific rankings and the bowl seedings. Look.
If
Cincinnati isn't beating anybody.
If that is the difference between us getting in the playoff and not, would it be worth it? If that would be the difference. If they're sitting at number 4.
If that's the difference between us getting in the playoffs or Cincinnati getting in the playoffs, then the system is just as garbage as it was.
Well, we know
I guess we're like, oh, it's a 2020. Why not give a group of 5 team a shot? Because they weren't good when they had to play out of conference. So now all of a sudden you're saying, we can't really rate the Power Fives because they're not playing Group of 5. You're just finding excuses.
If this would happen to anybody, though, it would be us.
Yeah, but
on this year.
But that's fine. But you're finding excuses as to why we have to play an extra game for no reason against an opponent that wasn't on our schedule at all, much less in 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. There's nothing good to come of it. Cincinnati will play their games, and look, if the voters decide that Cincinnati's worth a crap going to the playoffs, then maybe this is the year they realize that there's no reason to ever have Division I football outside of Power 5.
Right.
Because Cincinnati will get their doors blown off. We'll go play in the Sugar Bowl, beat the crap out of somebody, the Cotton Bowl, where we end up. We'll be in a year 6, we'll beat the snot out of them, and the shoulda, woulda, coulda won't matter.
No, you're right.
Because I'm not saying we can turn around and beat Bama, but we didn't. So why would you? It's either Bama or Clemson that we have to beat, or Ohio State.
Yeah, and that's all right.
So why not sacrifice up the G5 now? But I think it all washes out to where writers, right now I saw it on Barstool. They're like, how you got to start giving Cincinnati props because they're beating the crap out of the SMUs and the Memphises of the world. Like what planet do we live on when we're talking about the SMUs and the Memphises of the world?
Well, anybody in Power 5 is going to be
just because the SMU and Memphis played to 120 points in a game doesn't mean either of them are good.
No, like I said, it's not comparable, and that's we don't necessarily.
I think it's complete. I think it's a complete waste. I think it's insane,
and it very well could be.
Because I feel like Cincinnati is in a conference that has a conference championship game.
Yeah,
they have that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's let them go do that.
Yeah, well, and so if they're undefeated at the end of the year, where do they end up?
Are they going to play us when they have a conference championship game?
If they are undefeated at the end of the year, where do they end up?
Probably in the playoffs.
You think they will? This year, do you think that happens?
If there were ever a year where people were looking for excuses to include the G5 in the playoffs, and I don't know dick about Cincinnati's conference, and I don't care.
And also, and I guess this is another factor to throw in. But I really do want us to get into the game here. But the other factor to get to kind of touch on here was the fact that Pac-12 hasn't even played yet, and so we don't even know what that's going to look like.
You might have a 6-win undefeated Pac-12 team coming out, and so again, what would push out of Cincinnati would be Pac-12, not us. Right, unless the Pac-12 just completely eats on,
which is entirely possible.
Yeah, well, less. Hey, they've done less everything out on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So especially with the wildfires and everything. You get COVID, and then they also have the wildfire. So there's been a ton of factors for the Pac-12, but Cincinnati has a conference championship game to play in. So this whole let's schedule Cincinnati. Why do you think they'd even agree to it? They've got a conference championship they have to play in.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the same weekend.
So then why would they agree to it?
I don't know.
It's a dumb suggestion that on the face you're like, all right, sure, it makes sense, so we can play our way into the playoffs. You had your chance to play your way into the playoffs and you lost to Alabama.
Right. Well, it's more of a chuckle than anything.
No, you asked me why I thought it was stupid. I'm telling you exactly why I think it's stupid. It's stupid.
Right.
Like Cincinnati's got a conference they play in. Yeah. It's not like they're independent. They're going to choose their own fate. And what happens if they come back around and play a team they beat, and they beat them, and that team beats them in the conference championship? Mm-hmm. Then we saved ourselves some random stupid game that some moron decided would be a good idea. Mm-hmm. We save ourselves a week of play, and then possible injuries, a little bit of extra rest, extra study. Yeah, extra rest probably being the most important.
Probably, but
and Cincinnati plays themselves out of it.
Well, at this point, it's all moot point if we don't cruise through our schedule. So.
Yeah, again, if we don't win out, none of this matters anyways. If we win out, I still don't care. I'm still not going to play. I still don't agree to playing Cincinnati in a one-off. This isn't March Madness.
No, so yeah, I do want to go ahead and jump in on the game here since we do have it pulled up. So we do have Texas A&M final score 42-31 over Arkansas. The game, let's go ahead and just say the score obviously did not reflect the final, what actually happened in this ball game. This was offensively a complete dismantling of a team.
6 straight touchdown drives.
Yes.
Mond just, 80%. I mean, Mond played phenomenally. And we talked about the run setting up Weidemeyer. Weidemeyer had like 92 yards, 2 touchdowns, something crazy like that. Mm-hmm. Tight ends are a beast. Doesn't matter if it's a man or if it's zone. If you can establish some run and you can establish some offensive kind of progression and just you start to roll on offense. And so we gave up 461 yards to Arkansas in the game. And don't get me wrong, there were some defensive things here and there that you'd always like to have back. The targeting was doo-doo.
Oh, sure. And there was plenty of... there were a number of different penalties.
It's the SEC. Right. There's terrible calls.
We're
going to get used to it.
There's always terrible calls. But, we can certainly look at and things that we need to touch on, things we need to fix. But
So look at this. So we're 42-31, right? So we don't cover the spread. You take away 14, it's 42-17, right? Arkansas's last 2 scoring drives cover 144 total yards, and that includes a little bit of the back end of the third quarter because that first scoring drive was third to fourth quarter.
Right.
So we gave it 317 yards in 3 quarters and 17 points.
Mm-hmm. Overall, can't complain about that.
Can't complain. You talk about rushing. They had like 68 or 70 passing in the fourth. They had like 40 rushing. So again, the rushing numbers, a lot, pretty similar when you think about Kellen Mond attempted 1 pass in the fourth quarter.
Right.
We just shut it down. It was unfortunate that we couldn't execute to really burn the clock, but we shut it down. So we'll do the sustains and improves again. Sure. And I'll let you, do you want to do more sustains or more improves?
Well, I think I would like to touch on improves.
So, we'll each do one,
right.
And then, okay, so we'll start with sustains first. Let's talk about what we did good, right?
Okay, sure. Let's go ahead and get into that. So I would say one of my sustains, absolutely 100% without even a question's O-line play. Goodness gracious, Maroon Goons are the top, I would say, probably the top unit on the team right now.
On the team, absolutely. And I would say they're the second best offensive line behind Alabama. And they may be the second or third best offensive line the way they're playing right now in the country.
The fact that you have, at this point, given up a grand total of 1 sack, and that was in the second quarter of the Vanderbilt. Nope, 1 sack. Okay. 1 sack. And that was against Vanderbilt in the second quarter of the first game.
And even then, you're like, it's semantics. 1 sack, 2 sack.
1 sack, 2 sack. At this point, you've had 144 straight dropbacks without a sack given up. That's good. That's beyond good.
And we've watched the game, so it's not like Mond has been running for his life. It's not. He just
has a pocket.
He's had to slide into a pocket left to right, up or back, but that's what offensive lines do is they maintain a pocket, but the pocket might shift, but as they still protect it. You can slide left, you can slide right. You're still in the pocket, and you're still comfortable. There's no pressure, and even an average quarterback is going to pick you apart. You can drop 6, and you can drop 7, you can drop 8. If you give the dude enough time, the fact is the receivers know where they're going. Defenders are reacting. Mm-hmm. You'll always find somebody open. Because at some point, it becomes like Sandlot football. Like, you go there. Because, hey, crap, I'm here now. And, like, all the routes are out the window. But the offensive line, and not just Mond, the offensive line is absolutely making this team go.
Right. No doubt. So, give me one.
I'll give you the defensive line.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm going to add in the linebackers.
Sure.
There's been a ton of pursuit. I love to see a bunch of maroon helmets around the ball. Mm-hmm. When it's one guy trying to tackle in pursuit, when it's the linebackers reading plays, defensive ends pursuing from the backside. The effort, and it's not just effort. You have to have, all the effort in the world is going to matter if I'm on the backside and trying to pursue an actual, it's got to be talent there. But it feels like the defense it's two parts. They're playing together. So you have you have your the linebackers in the line are really playing for each other and love each other. You have the secondary, they're really playing for each other and love each other. And then together they're playing defense. They're not like fragmented where they're like, blaming each other for anything.
No.
But the front seven is gelled at a level that I don't think secondary has yet. But again, the youth in the secondary,
right.
You don't expect to see it. But they're getting better.
And I will say, you look at Arkansas's offensive line, certainly better than what Mississippi State's was. And they still played pretty damn well.
They did. They moved the line around. Again, I we'll get into the improves, but again, I thought the line played well. I really think kind of that front really played well, not just the line, but the linebackers as well.
Oh yeah, pretty much anybody. I mean, they all did very well for themselves.
Another sustain. I think we can both say Mon.
I would say we just go so Kellen Mond.
Look, we ain't gonna explain it. Go look it up. Mond is a sustain. Probably the best game I've maybe seen him play.
This was his best.
I thought it was better in Florida.
But this was his best statistical game in the maroon and white.
Well, and you look at that and you wonder if maybe one of those sustains is the offensive play calling.
Right.
Let's set this up offensively, and as much as we love in college to see these high flying offenses and high scoring offenses, the pro kind of approach that Jimbo brings with tight ends, running backs, fullbacks, it suits Mond very well. Yeah. Especially being a mobile quarterback.
Right. And with Kellen Mond, and in addition to that, what I will go ahead and add as an addition to that was the fact that we did have good scheming, good play calling. There weren't issues at the line where we were like running out, having delay of games. We weren't having troubles getting the calls in like we did against Florida. We didn't have those issues this game. Offense was just clicking on all cylinders.
Literally all cylinders. Offensive coordinators, players being attentive when they needed to substitute. You get the play calls in. I thought I'll give you a 4 sustain. Game management was phenomenal.
Was real good. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as improves, right? Yeah. And we really wanted to touch on that. I would say probably my one improve I really wanted to touch on was penalties. We doubled them up on penalties almost. Yeah, they had 5. Let me actually pull up the stats here. You look at the penalties for them. They had 5 for 51 yards. We had 9 for 100 yards. So I mean, that's an additional 100 yards that we had of offense and really defensively that we could have done for ourselves that we're just giving up because of silly mistakes.
Yeah. But this has been an outlier for penalties, though. I thought that game was a bit of an outlier relative to the rest of the season.
Sure.
We're certainly not one of the most penalized teams in the nation by any means.
No.
In fact, some of the stats you've been seeing this year from us are so encouraging. Best in the nation on third down conversions,
which has
offense.
Been awesome. Love
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah. Another sustain.
Great sustain.
Yeah. Keep converting third downs. Huge fan.
Big deal.
But I felt like there's a bit of an outlier. This game is chippy down the field.
It was.
In Texas, Arkansas, these kids are chippy, and so while you still like to see that discipline, keep it in check. If this becomes a problem moving forward, I think it's something you address.
Sure.
This specific game, it's absolutely an improve. So don't make it, a pattern or a habit.
Right.
One of my improves will be putting the game away, and I get that 42-17, you kind of put the game away. But once they went on that scoring drive and moved it in, moved that kind of, they got to 23 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
you're
24.
Like, all right, 24. You're like, all right, well, let's impose our will one more time as opposed to just running 3 or 4 times, getting a couple penalties and punting. That I like. Look, I love the fact that we were able to just go into a shell, but. Like once they scored that, I think
it would have been nice to see one more.
Well, even just right. Drive down the field and kick a field goal, because on top of that, you're burning clock.
Right, and one thing I will say that this particular play style that we did in the fourth quarter and late part of the third, that kind of play calling absolutely would have won us the UCLA game in 17.
Well, yeah, and it won us this game, but I didn't say like just keep going after it and being stupid.
No,
but it's. Once they scored, there was a need to maybe impose a little bit more will to just kind of burn more clock. Really,
the words that came across when I looked online, that really made a lot of sense for me was killer instinct. Like, not to say we didn't do a poor job of obviously playing well in the game and winning the game. We did, but being able to just smother a team out of existence. That's what we want.
It's blood sport. You just got to finish the guy.
Right.
And so if at that point, if the score ends up 49-31, I think for the people that, the writers that don't watch the games per se, I think there's a different narrative. 42-31 is, in theory, a 2-score game, granted with no time left, but it's a 2-score game, and there's a lot of optics involved in this. And so I would like you said, that killer instinct. And again, I mean, at 42-17, you're like, the killer instinct is good. But once they drove down between the end of the third and start of the fourth and there was like 75 yard scoring drive. You can't just go into a shell and run when it comes to national perception. And whether you like that part of college football doesn't really matter. You can't go out there and with a final score of 42-31 against in a game you just dominated.
And it's the reason why you're going to see teams like Georgia or teams like Florida eventually jump us in the rankings is going to be because...
Well, Georgia's ahead of us, aren't they?
Well, Georgia is ahead of us, but I'm saying if Florida wins next week, which we'll get into, Florida beats Georgia, Florida will probably jump us in the rankings despite the fact we won that game. And the reason why is because there is a national perception of programs like Florida, Georgia, people who have been established there.
So as much as I'd like to see Florida beat Georgia to kind of substantiate our win, I know what that would do in the polls. So what you have to look at it, you're a big Georgia fan this week, and you're a big Georgia fan by winning by like 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, I would say
Georgia needs to win, and by no more than like 6.
Right, it needs to be a tight
maybe
game.
7.
Maybe a touchdown game. Yeah,
and I think that's how you have to look at as an A&M fan, knowing just how polls work and how all this works out. You need Florida to play competitively against a higher ranked team, but still not win.
Right, and I think that what that will do for us is obviously eliminate another contender for that outside
for the rankings,
spot. Right. And, we did get one of those with Oklahoma State dropping. And we just need to keep seeing those go forward.
Well, and here's the fun thing about Group of 5 teams. Not to say Oklahoma State's Group of 5, although, whatever. But Group of 5 conferences have this weird ability to, even when they have one of the best, highest ranked teams in the nation, somehow just step on it, and just Cincy will just come out and lay an egg. So part of me, and I think maybe that's part of me that had to do with the whole rant about not playing Cincy. Like, Cincy's going to step on it because they just always seem to. Because now all of a sudden Cincinnati is everybody's Super Bowl in that conference. Cincinnati's going to get the best shot from every team left on their schedule in that conference.
And I think out of those games, one of the ones that kind of highlighted for me is Tulsa. I think Tulsa.
Tulsa's always dangerous.
Right, and that's why I'm kind of curious about how that one might play out. But, that's neither here nor there on them. I think just overall with this game, limited complaints.
I was happy. I could be happier. Again, the killer instinct was probably the biggest one. Penalties, again, if it pops up again next week, then it's something that we're having issues with. This is a chippy game. Texas and Arkansas kids play against each other. They know each other.
But still to this point, the fact that not only we won we won the game, and it was in convincing fashion, but we have won 9 straight against these guys. They have not beaten us since joining the SEC.
You're getting so salty.
That is an absolutely incredible stat line. And you know what? The amount of salt that is coming out of that fan base is just glorious, and I'm all here for it.
It's just fascinating to me. And so, I got tagged in something. I tried to respond, and then what I could only assume is either current students or very recent grads were just, yipping back at me on Twitter, and it dawned on me that there's nothing I have to validate to people like this, ever. So I just, I appreciate a couple people who were like, hey, I appreciate you guys kind of following up and helping my case. But hey, it dawned on me that they're not worth. I got tagged originally in some Arkansas Zoo post, a guy that was like, "Hope y'all get COVID and die" or something crap like that.
Okay, guys, it's a freaking game. Chill out. We're sorry that you have this inferiority complex that just runs so deep in your roots in your state.
Well, and I've talked about this before, not on the podcast, but just for years. If you live in Arkansas, what do you have? You have Arkansas football, and that's it.
You have Arkansas football and Walmart.
Pro sports don't want anything to do with you at any level. They're nothing. So literally all you have is to go outside and call the hogs while you're crying. And after another loss against mean old Aggie.
Well, and I will say it's a fascinating.
There's a lot of great people in Fayetteville, though.
Sure.
Fayetteville's a cool town.
It's a cool town. The problem is with Arkansas, it is such a unique fan base in that if you talk to them preseason, it doesn't matter what the sport is. It doesn't matter what the previous rankings were. It doesn't matter about any of that stuff. They are national title contenders every year in every sport because this is their Dallas Cowboys.
Well,
this is their New York Yankees. This is their team.
Well, I grew up through the 60 Minutes of Hell with Nolan Harris and that basketball team. They could sit there and say, hey, this is our year because they had a shot at it. Arkansas baseball, phenomenal program.
Oh, no doubt.
They got a shot at it. Arkansas
no
football.
Titles, though.
Here's the catch, Arkansas football.
Right.
Shut up.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, you can talk to anybody else right now, but right now you're 364 days, give or take, from being 0-10. So, and you know what it reminds me of, and I hate to say this, but, self-reflection is very important. Man, next year's our year. Where have I heard that crap before?
Well, man, we're just out here. You had to rub that one on, didn't you?
Well, yeah, but at the same time, we don't say that anymore. No. This is our year at A&M. And again, a million times, Sam Pittman, good hire. You're going to stab yourself above the Mississippis. I've talked about the Leach experiment. I've talked about the Kiffin experiment. They're going to win some they shouldn't, and they're going to lose the rest of them. But Arkansas is in position right now to kind of battle Auburn. It's kind of where I see moving forward. Arkansas
fans, at this point, you guys are a solid mid-tier SEC team.
And that's LSU might literally drop to that. You want to talk about a fall from grace. So, and I'm not going to talk in depth about LSU, sure. but so sorry. Maybe,
no tears.
Yeah, maybe your donors shouldn't steal from children's hospitals, and these things wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I believe in karma, but then I saw that, and maybe it's karma.
Right. Waste taxpayer money on a lazy river that you guys can't afford, despite the fact you guys desperately need a library. But whatever.
Yeah.
God.
It's just Arkansas does have an opportunity right now where I think Auburn. I don't care that they beat the crap out of LSU. I think A&M Consolidated would keep LSU, maybe 3/4. Yeah. It'd be tight. They're just bad. They're bad football. They got a bad defensive coordinator. And it turns out Ed Orgeron wasn't the driving factor behind that team. It was Joe Burrow and 47 NFL players on the roster. So Ed O walked into this beautiful situation that made him look amazing. But now LSU fans are figuring out that he's just a football coach.
Where have we heard that before?
Yeah, and Bo Pelini sucks.
Yeah.
And he sucked for years. Why he got hired? Why you guys didn't see this coming at all, I have no idea. So I have zero fear of LSU. I think y'all are a joke. If there is a single LSU fan out here, please share it out to all your friends. I think y'all are an absolute travesty on the football field, and you deserve it. You deserve it for how ridiculous you've been and some of the crap you've pulled over all the years. But I think Arkansas can move into that tier, and I think Auburn is. Again, who cares if you beat LSU? Auburn's in a weird phase where they can either slide or they can progress. But I think it'll all come down to the last game of our season, Auburn's program is perceived, and so it's Alabama and then the next tier, And I firmly believe we're in that next tier. So who wants to join us? Because there's really only one other team in the West that can. No. You can have a second tier in the West with 5 teams.
Right, and that might be Auburn, but we'll see.
Okay, so
it's weird.
So we'll get into a little bit on South Carolina.
Sure.
But we can talk about the very few games nationally that really matter. Sure. The first, obviously, being Clemson Notre Dame.
Sure.
Sun shines out till Sunday. And so that means Clemson gets Notre Dame without Trevor Lawrence.
Which I think if Clemson wins that game, and I firmly believe they will, I think that's just going to further solidify what we already knew about Notre Dame.
Well, I think it also solidifies what we think about Clemson.
Right.
Look, Trevor Lawrence is an absolute man, but
they're a machine.
Just remember that Trevor Lawrence is out. Travis Etienne is not.
Mm-hmm.
That offensive line is not. Literally every other piece in that offense is not. So
right.
I think last week against BC was a really Like, what a glorious time, if there ever were, to be missing your quarterback than when you get Boston College.
And it looked okay early for Boston College, but...
Then Clemson remembered that they were Clemson.
Yeah, and they came back and won.
Yeah, and they came back and won. So it's... could it be a tight game? Sure. I still don't believe that Notre Dame's any good. I don't know that they've really beat anybody. And Clemson has beat the brakes off some people, and they just won a game without a Heisman contender. Quarterback, right. Not just a Heisman, a Heisman contending quarterback. So, and knowing what you know about what I think about the importance of quarterbacks,
right.
If Clemson can win that game when they were in a dogfight, for 30 minutes, the last 30 minutes, they did what Clemson's capable of doing.
Right. And
so I'll take Clemson over Notre Dame.
I like that one too. I think Notre Dame, they'll play.
I think Notre Dame will play inspired.
Sure.
It might be another case where maybe Clemson goes down 7 or 10. If Clemson gets down by more than 10 against Notre Dame, it can be a problem.
Right. Now, you have games in South Bend. I don't know how much that's going to matter, but like I said, I do.
Well, yeah, Big Ten and 10, it's a different,
I do think it's going to be a Clemson win, though. I'm right there with you. And then really the only other major games that were going on, you did have Florida and Georgia.
Yeah, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, which, first of all, is one of the greatest names in all of rivalries.
Fantastic name.
Second of all, I love they're doing Jacksonville, so we're going to have a ton of fans.
Oh, yeah.
And third, this should be a really good football game.
Yeah, I think there's a really good probability of that. I mean, right.
But here's my caveat. Who has tested Trask outside of us?
Right.
Yeah, so, Florida really hasn't quite played anybody yet.
Except for us.
Right, well, womp. So, Georgia has a quarterback, which means everybody else is good, including the defense. Georgia's defense is good. All right?
Right.
And if Georgia can get to Florida early, defensively, if they can really kind of shut it down, I don't think Florida has the guns to catch up.
Right. I think you look at kind of how, looking just as things have been cruising along with Florida and Georgia, I think Georgia themselves, very obviously good team, maybe not from a shutting people completely down facet of the game.
Taking care of business, though.
They do take care of business.
They're like us.
Yeah,
they look really good, minus a half at Arkansas.
Well, and the second half
Bama.
of Bama, right? So they really had 2 bad quarters of football this year. 2 bad halves of football. And that's kind of been the story of the year, I think.
So despite Bennett, they've been good.
Despite Bennett, they've been pretty solid. So, man, I don't know. I have a hard time looking at this game and really saying that I like Florida over Georgia or vice versa. And the line is stressing that because it's a 3.5 favorite to Georgia.
Well, it's a neutral site, though.
And it's a neutral site.
So Georgia's the clear favorite. I think I don't even have to know the roster to know that Georgia has tailbacks that will be on an NFL roster.
Uh-huh.
That's just kind of what they do. It's like Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So I err towards Georgia because, again, when you have a passing team like Florida with Trask, when he doesn't have the ball, he can't score. And if you got running backs that can dominate, when you have a quarterback like Georgia has where you don't really want to put the game into his hands fully, you're going to rely on the run game and rely on defense. That's good old-fashioned Georgia football, you know. Defense and running. You pass when you absolutely have to. So I like Georgia in this game. I don't know if they... I'd like him to win by about 6 or 7.
Sure.
Even up to 10, to be honest. As long as it's not a blowout win, it looks great for us because Florida competes with a great team, top 5 team in Georgia. Couldn't quite pull it out in the end. So a 6 or 7 point win, if you're an Aggie, is what you're rooting for. You're rooting for UGA and you want 6 or 7 points.
All right, so definitely looking at the rest of the SEC. We've got a few other games. Really only 2 other games on the schedule this week. It's light week, a lot of bye week for people. But we
already had ours. It's time for the rest of the league. Yeah.
Right, so you have the first game, which will be at 2:30 on SEC Network. You're going to have Vanderbilt at Mississippi State.
How is that the 2:30 game?
Well, it's SEC Network.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's on network. It's not CBS. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's So, the CBS game, that one's going to be Georgia-Florida, obviously.
Yeah.
But you look at Vanderbilt, Mississippi State going on about the same time.
Dude.
Here, let me go.
Anchor down, baby.
Anchor down, but let me give you what their logic is here. So, one win between these two guys. And here's the funny part: Mississippi State is an 18.5-point favorite. 18.5. They have. Here's a funny.
In Starkville.
In Starkville. Here's a funny stat for you though. If we're gonna go down this road, so. How many points did Mississippi State score against LSU? Do you remember what the final of that
58 or something like that?
It was 44-34.
Yeah, lots.
Since that game, Mississippi State has scored 30 points on the year. And yes, 14 of that was against us, but one of those was a pick six. Get off it.
And they're going to win by how many?
They say 18.5. I have Vandy absolutely 100% covering this game.
Dude, you know what? I'm going to take Vandy to win.
I'm okay with Vandy.
And just an absolute meltdown in Starkville combined with this logical reasoning that, don't worry, Leach will get us there. He just doesn't have his guys yet.
Right.
You know what? I like Derek Mason. I know they're calling for him to be fired, and I'm sure he will be after this season.
Probably.
But I tell you what, you go on the road and beat Mississippi State, things might change a little bit. So just for fun, I'll take Vandy in that one.
Right. So
I don't dislike the Pirate, but how perfect would that be?
I mean, and I love statistically what's going on here between the two quarterbacks. This is incredible. So Seals for Vandy, he's 79 of 118 for 730 yards passing. He's got 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. Meanwhile, Costello's sitting here with 134 of 207. He has 6 touchdowns and 10 interceptions.
Handpicked by Leach, I might add.
Yes.
And the Vandy kid's a freshman. So, You know what? I would almost drop $50 on Vandy to win outright just because I bet the odds are great.
Right. Anchor down on that one for sure. Night game. And this one's relevant for us because it's our last opponent and our next opponent after South Carolina. Tennessee at Arkansas. Tennessee is a 1.5-point favorite on the road. I don't know what to think about this game. You have two teams that are both set at 2 and 3, an Arkansas team that is definitely above where we thought they would, and Tennessee, who's maybe a little under where some people thought they would be.
Well, I think they're way lower than what they were initially, preseason picked.
Sure.
Here's the only thing I'll say about this game. It can't go wrong for us.
No.
We just beat Arkansas. If they beat Tennessee, 2 things. One, everybody's going to be like, hey, but they bounced back from the A&M win.
Right.
So that does well for us in the narrative.
Right.
And then we go into Tennessee, probably a 24-point favorite, and we'll win by 23.
Probably.
But, jerks. But if Tennessee wins and we beat Tennessee, again, it goes back to us taking care of business, but relative to this game and its outcome, there's not a bad outcome for us.
No.
Doesn't matter who gets their doors blown off. Because if Tennessee, if there is a blowout, if Tennessee blows out Arkansas and then we beat Tennessee, awesome. If Arkansas blows out Tennessee, then man, we just beat the team that blew the doors off Tennessee.
Right.
So this is one of those fun little kind of happenstance where the schedule works out.
Sure.
This can't go wrong for us.
No, it can't.
I mean, unless it's 7-5 at the end of the game.
Which, at that point, it would just be a trash football game. So, if we're looking at this, I have Arkansas. I think Arkansas wins this game. I think it's that fair, though. I think they do bounce back. I think they were looking better down the stretch. I think it's going to be them.
Yeah, I think at home, I think they can pull it off. Again, it depends on which Tennessee quarterback comes, they literally actually start, not comes to play, who literally is under center. But again, I think maybe Arkansas, I think Butch Jones is terrible during the season. So I think Butch Jones will make a really bad decision on who to start a quarterback.
Right.
Arkansas will get back on their accidental ball hawking ways. Mm-hmm. And Tennessee will probably maybe turn the ball over 3-4 times, and Arkansas will run away with this 14, 20, 21 points.
Yeah, I like Arkansas taking that one. Which kind of boils us down, kind of here at the end. A&M South Carolina. Cocky game. We're at South Carolina.
Yes, rivalry.
Big time rivalry.
Yeah, and
huge.
Yeah,
classic. James Butler Bonham Trophy, baby.
Seriously, what's the difference between a gamecock and a bucket of shit? Well, quite a few things. There's really no reason to make that comparison. I really respect Gamecocks, so rivalry.
Rivalry.
Yeah, rivalry.
That was probably the funniest thing on Twitter. If you haven't checked it out,
check out String. It's so great. Like I don't. What a rivalry.
The best rivalry.
South Carolina is really bad at football, and if you haven't picked that up, then you haven't watched a lot of South Carolina highlights and kind of game recaps.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of go over their games up to this point. So they are sitting at 2-3. They dropped game 1 against Tennessee in what was a tight ball game. And
Tennessee's not good at football.
They lost to Florida 38-24, which,
Well, and what's crazy about that game is they were up like 21-7 or 14-0. I mean, I remember looking up at that game going, oh, crap, South Carolina's got this. Wow, they look at Florida. They're not very good.
Well, yeah.
And Florida just proceeded to blow their doors off for the rest of the game.
And they did.
It's because Florida adjusting as opposed to South Carolina kind of blowing their wad early.
Right. And then you have South Carolina, and then, of course, Vanderbilt got wiped with the floor.
Yeah,
the only real surprise on the schedule, were the next 2 games. They go and they beat Auburn at home, which...
It's such a weird game, but, oh, man.
It was a weird game.
It went like downpour, and it was just a gross, sloppy game. Like, I feel like that game was, like...
It was a Sunday game.
There's a lot of... What's that game?
Yeah, that was.
I'm trying to think of the South Carolina game that was like really like a mud job.
But that was a game that just.
But again, I don't believe in Auburn.
What happened in that game, and that was honestly what sealed it for him, was Knicks had 3 interceptions.
Oh yeah.
So that didn't help.
You don't get bad Knicks. I think that's about Knicks.
Probably. And then of course they go to LSU and get absolutely manhandled 52-24.
How do you get manhandled by LSU? They're terrible.
Right. So now they're sitting here on a bye week, coming into this game. Actually, so we get them coming off a bye week.
Whatever.
Big deal, right? But so we come into this game, and I think as we look statistically between the two teams, really it's hard to judge what South Carolina's strengths are, because I don't think it's honestly from the offensive standpoint. You have a guy that's thrown for over 1,000 yards. He has 5 touchdowns with 3 picks. Meanwhile, Kellen Mond, he's got about 200 additional yards passing, but has 12 touchdowns to 2. You look at their rushing game. Average rushing yards per game. Yeah, they have a guy he's running pretty well. That's probably going to be their one strength, is going to be the running back game.
Well, the problem is if running is your strength and you play us, then you're kind of screwed.
Right.
I think it's been shown that if you're going to have any success against us whatsoever, you better have a dynamic passing game.
Sure.
Just not a passing offense, because Mississippi State had that, and here we are.
Sure.
You have to have a dynamic passing game, which includes pass coverage, it includes good route runners, it includes smart decisions by the quarterback. So if your strength relies on the ground against us, you're done.
Sure.
You're done.
Right, and I look at, so this kind of plays to something I found really interesting. If you look at the stats between the two teams, A&M is averaging 30.8 points a game. South Carolina is averaging 29.2. Meanwhile, we're only allowing 29.4 a game, and they're allowing 30. So by that stat alone, we're a 1-point favorite just based on that. But if you look at the actual yardage, A&M's, we're averaging 426 yards a game to their 378, and we are allowing less yardage than them at 375 to 402.
Well, and when you talk about yards allowed, you also have to remember, we let off the gas. Like I said, there was extra 100 some odd yards just in the fourth quarter when we had just completely quit. If you count the 2 scoring drives, it was 144 yards we gave up.
Right.
Basically at the end of the third and the fourth quarter, and scoring drives. We weren't necessarily trying to play tight. I mean, you're always trying to play tight defense, but again, it was just kind of bend down break, and we broke a little bit. But and again, we didn't cover the spread, but it was still a comfortable win.
It was.
You go back to Mississippi State. We didn't win by a whole lot, but one of those, they scored 14 points. One of them was a pick six.
Sure.
Or a defensive touch.
Right.
The funky bonk pick six. But we held the offense in check. So if you can't throw the ball against us, you're done. And,
right.
And I think that's. And you saw with Alabama. Alabama is the majority of their rushing yards came in the fourth quarter. So we really, if you kind of pull it back, and you can, I get that the whole game stats count.
Right.
But if you take out them just trying to run the clock down, we held them about 80 yards, same as they held us to. But what they did was just destroy us through the air. So if we can maintain the posture of stopping the run, if you could stop the run, it's easier to stop the pass.
Right.
So that's where I kind of look at these stats and say, yards allowed is going to get 1 point. Like points per drive or
right.
or yards per play or can be a lot closer to factual evidence to compare each other.
Which is fair to say. I mean, you look at Texas A&M, and obviously we're leading on on both of those.
Yeah.
So about the only other thing for them is they rush. Their rush yards are less than ours, and obviously passing yards are way less than ours too.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're doing both of those less, and you're running up against a team that is just barreling down the tracks, because we are full of confidence.
Right.
We already had our bye week, and came in and really just flat out took care of business.
And this is a business trip. We're going to go on the road.
And we have back-to-back business trips, but South Carolina, it's not an intimidating place to play.
Especially not right now.
Even when it's full, it's not. And it's not intimidating because the most intimidating thing in that stadium relative to wearing, scarlet and black or whatever the hell their colors are, is the head coach. And he's just intimidating because he's like, that dude just yells a whole lot. He doesn't really say anything, but he yells a lot. So he's super, Mr. Meanie Pants. But that's not going to matter because the team has never really taken on the persona that Muschamp, I think, really wanted them to take on.
Right.
They're not tough. They're not gritty. They don't play tough defense, and they haven't in a long time. And so I think this is going to be a brutal one that maybe because we're on the road, we make sure that we don't let off the gas too early.
Sure. Give me a score prediction.
Man, I'll go back to Arkansas. Back before we decided to just go into a shell, because I don't think we go necessarily into a shell on the road as much. But Mond on the road isn't Mond at Kyle Field. I get that.
Right.
But man, on the road over the last couple of years, we love to run the ball and we love to run it well. So I mean, I'll go 41-17. Where we had Arkansas before we let off the gas.
Sure. I'm going to give South Carolina just a little additional credit. I'm saying 31-21, and the only reason they're going to get that 21 is because they scored garbage time touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, if they get to 21, I'm fine. I still like the 41. I'm fine with. I could almost say 45 out of the offense.
Right. If the offense does that, I'm going to be much happier. But I just think with the road game, I wouldn't be shocked if we don't quite do what we do. But
I think, given this road game where our first road game was Bama, right?
Sure, and then the second was Mississippi
the second was South Carolina, and when you go on the road against a team that you have to know you're better than talent-wise, and you realize that this isn't going on the road to Tuscaloosa, and this team's on a mission now. We talked about it. Once you do it, you know you can do it. So you're ready for the next challenge. So I think this is a really go out and prove it on the road game for this team.
Right.
I think if there's kind of a oops, not as pretty as it should have been win on the road, it will be Tennessee and not South Carolina.
I think you're right.
I think they're going to Columbia, South Carolina to prove a point, and it would not surprise me for us to get to 50.
I think there's an additional factor that I do want to throw in there, which I think is
the trophy, right? The rivalry.
I would say the rivalry, but I think honestly, it's the A&M intimidation factor with South Carolina. This is a team that has never beaten us in football ever. The rivalry, the first game ever was 14. You have lost consistently to us both at home and on the road.
And we're better than we've ever been.
And we are as good of a team.
Playing South Carolina, we're as good as we've ever been.
So, I mean, it's more of a case of, knowing exactly what you were saying. You're not lining up across the crimson and white of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You're lining up across the field from South Carolina, who's going to be wearing garnet black, whatever. But
that's what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're going to be wearing whatever, and it does not matter who they are, because you are a better team than them, and go out and take care of business.
Go out, take care of business, and this could be a really lopsided game.
It could be.
Which would look great coming off the optics of last week.
Sure. And you just feel this A&M team is absolutely offensively found its stride. And if you think defensively they do a better lockdown and just kind of keep things going. I mean, I think just from our rushing game standpoint and the fact that Weidermeyer's looking like a world beater and Kellen Mond has just been an absolute... I mean, he
Miller,
is...
Anais, Chain. The weapons are coming out. Hezekiah Jones, how about that dude?
I was about to say Hezekiah Jones coming in.
So great to see him play well coming off an injury.
Well, and, another, going back to the Arkansas game, there was another, sustain that I wanted to throw in there. I'll go ahead. I guess I'll just drop it, drop that bad boy in the bucket right now. But you look at, running back depth now. Because you had this other kid, Devin Achane comes in. Achane, sorry.
Chain. It's like I too, but I chain.
But he comes in and he rips off a 30-yard run after Spiller came out of the game.
Oh, he's special. I tell you, Odd-Chain is special.
So,
oof.
I mean, between
so
him,
many weapons.
Right. Well, between him, Spiller, and Anais Smith, you've got enough offensively in the backfield to help you out. You've got wide receivers. Despite the fact we've lost many pieces.
Chase Lane.
Yeah, I mean Chase Lane's good.
Hezekiah Jones shows up.
Yeah.
Even though he's not a wide receiver in the passing game, you have Weidermeyer.
Right.
And so you have these weapons, and I won't say it's embarrassment of riches because obviously there are players that aren't there. You wish that were there. Chapman got hurt. We had some players opt out.
Which why would you opt out of something this fun?
Baylor Cup got hurt again. So we're talking about weapons that aren't even in the magazine, man. You got rounds that aren't in the chamber. So it's fun to watch, and I don't think South Carolina defensively has a remote chance of stopping it. It's whether or not South Carolina decides to institute an entire run and shoot old Houston Oilers style offense. Because if they got to rely on the run at all, I think South Carolina's done.
And I think the big thing, which always is a factor on the road that we have to keep in mind always, just limit mistakes. No turnovers, no stupid penalties.
Well, and we've done that well,
and we've done that very well, and we just got to keep that going.
Yeah, it's ball security is paramount, and
yes.
and the way that we've kind of approached it looks like we've approached it that way again. The pick six at Mississippi State is one of the most freakish pick six I've ever seen. It happens, and it's really kind of not on the fly. If you want to pick on something, you can. But again, the turnovers that we have had, man, look at the sacks, look at the turnovers, look how well we're playing, third down efficiency,
right?
Offense, rushing, just all of it's been so great and so fun to watch. And I think it absolutely keeps rolling on what is kind of the big maroon train coming down the tracks right now. And I would not want to be South Carolina this weekend. I'm telling you right now.
So, yeah. So, like in our...
Talk about being defeated after their game last week.
Right, no kidding. I think we're sitting here just kind of cruising in the right direction. I like what we're seeing, so...
But, again, still fix the little things. But when you hear it, not from the coach, because coach speak will always say, well, we got some things to clean up. We got right. But when you hear the players about it on a Monday after the game in press conference talking about what they know they need to clean up and what they understand is, that isn't necessarily just talking points from the top. That's them in a culture of a program understanding and seeing things that they know.
Yes.
On Sunday they're watching tape. On Monday they're watching tape. So these press conferences are very specific to what they understand they need to clean up. This isn't just a bullet point, bullet points on a note card at them at a press conference. So it's fun to see that culture that's being built of expectation.
Yeah, and it's safe to say that we're moving in the right direction.
I'm excited, man. I really like this. I'm excited, and I have very little worry, and I understand it. I'm not. Not that there's zero concern, because there always is playing a football game on the road in the SEC, but I feel really good about this. And I feel as good about this weekend as I did this past Saturday with Arkansas.
Sure.
And -2, garbage touchdowns when we just really went into a shell. But again, we got to stop going to the shell.
That's right.
Biggest improve.
So as we move on into this next week, just one other thing that I did want to touch on. As we are getting into... a very important time in our country this week. We do have the election.
Well, by the time this comes out, it'll be done, or is it coming out?
It's going to be coming out tomorrow morning.
Okay, so we're in the midst of it.
So we'll be in the midst of Election Day. So, if you're going to be listening to this today, just a few things to keep in mind. And we're not, like I said, we're not a political podcast, and we're not going to go down that road.
Nope.
But what I will say is go out, conduct your civil responsibility if you haven't done it yet.
Today and you haven't done it yet.
Yes.
Vote.
Go out and vote. Conduct your civil responsibility. And regardless of the outcome, no matter what side of the table you're on, respect everybody around you. Take care of each other. Recognize we're all Americans, and we are all going to strive together to continue to have, continue to push this country in the right direction.
And the world's not going to end, that's for sure.
No, regardless of who wins. So, and if you are in certain areas, just kind of keep in mind with what's going on and what what is anticipated. Just be careful.
Yeah, well, just look. Nothing's going to get as crazy as everybody thinks it's going to get.
Probably not.
Just a quick kind of thoughts and prayers out to Vienna tonight.
Yes.
When you read this, you might already see kind of the news that's already unfolded. I haven't read a lot of it. We started the podcast.
Right.
And I just kind of seen it. So, thoughts out to Vienna.
Scary
what's
stuff.
Going? Yeah, no, absolutely scary. So, but again, we really appreciate you guys listening. Visit Rob_White14.
Yeah.
and Roy May at Roy May 15. You know, check out Rob on all his social media stuff, and you know, still got Goodwill Barbecue and any shows coming out.
Well, yeah, a handful. We actually do have a. We'll be playing the Keg and Jewett, but I'll be highlighting. We actually have 2 shows in College Station next week at the Tap, Friday and Saturday night, and our single with
next week. So
yeah, next
we'll
week.
make sure we hit again on that.
Yeah, we'll hit again on that next week. But our single's coming out this Friday, and so make sure with Jordan Nix.
Okay.
So make sure you guys check that out. And like I said, I'm supporting him continuously, and of course we just want to make sure everybody's enjoying themselves, and that's the best.
We gotta
part.
have fun. We're all through Halloween, it's the holiday season. One thing I tweeted out: the Aggies Can Drive. It's the Texas A&M Athletics runs a canned food drive. Obviously, because of social distancing, they set it up a little differently. You actually text 313131 to Aggies, text Aggies Can to 313131, and that's one word, Aggies Can. So 313131, and it gives you an option how much you want to donate. I mean, you're talking about they can make 5 meals out of $1. So if you can, you know, absolutely go out. Yeah, we're heading into the holidays. And hunger is still an issue in everybody's community.
It always is.
And if you don't have the money right now to donate, also remember that it's getting cold, and it's even getting cold in Texas, and it's going to get cold. Go through those closets. If you got sweaters, you got jackets. If you haven't worn them in a couple years, round them up. Please donate them to your local shelters. There are families in need. There are veterans in need.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that's really difficult for about the holidays for a lot of people. But the one thing we can always stay positive about through the holiday season, because like I said, once you hit Halloween, the holidays just come with a flurry.
Right.
And the one thing we can stay positive about is our ability to help our fellow man and fellow humans and fellow Americans and your community. So just remember that as we start sliding into the holiday season, and we start thinking about turkey and ham and family and all that good stuff. Always remember that there are a lot of people out there that can use your help, and you don't have to donate $1,000. They'll take your help in any way, shape, or form. So always think of the people that are less fortunate than you right now.
Right.
So and I'll probably bang that drum until we're done for the year.
I'm about to say we'll do that a few more times.
But hey, thanks for listening. Share it out.
Sure thing.
Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff.
Yeah, Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. Gig 'em, love y'all, and of course a big shout out to the top of the table, Liverpool. You'll never walk alone, baby.
Yeah, nobody cares about those because they cheated.
Ah.
Liverpool cheated. Whatever.
So
all
sorry.
right, hey,
Bye.
Gig 'em, come on, you